Here's a little look internationally. I'm going to give you a flavour of what's happening and what does passive house look like. In the UK, they're doing a lot of passive house schools, and what I really like about this project is that it's being built by a company from Cork. So we have Cork companies, as I mentioned earlier on, there's a hotbed in Munster of disproportionately more people and companies doing this in Munster than nationally. One of the companies doing that is Signum Timber Frame. So they would have done a lot of housing, timber frame housing, I suppose, during the boom. And when things took a turn for the worse, they looked abroad and started and realised that there was a market for in the UK that hadn't collapsed as much, and that they were very keen to keep pursuing the passive house model. And they are now doing a lot of their work exporting Irish timber frames into the UK. And that's a passive house school being done. And why would you do a passive house school? Well, air quality is... the benefits of doing low energy buildings aren't just about ticking boxes in terms of energy consumption. Inherently low energy buildings are more comfortable. And we had a little discussion there amongst ourselves that, you know, if you're trying to heat a building up that's cool, that's gotten cold overnight down to, say, we'll take an extreme temperature outside, 0 degrees. You're looking for 20 degrees inside. The building has cooled down 4 or 5 degrees overnight. You want to heat that up. You have to put in a load of heat to ramp that heat up. Doing that will feel uncomfortable because you won't hit 20 degrees. You'll hit into 22, 23, 24, and you don't get a nice steady temperature that gives you the sensation of comfort. So with a building that is very well built, has very stable temperatures, if you get it to the temperature you want, you can keep it there with very little energy. But also it gets much easier to control air quality, fresh air with heat recovery. So you can have lots of fresh air when you need it, so that you're not afraid to open your window in your classroom in winter because the kids next to it are getting blown out of it by cold temperatures. So air quality in passive house buildings is much higher than buildings that are naturally ventilated. That means less kids falling asleep. Sorry, a quick figure there on CO2. So these are 2,500 parts per million CO2 in a space is where you start falling asleep. If there's anybody falling asleep here now, I'm not going to blame you. It's because we haven't got enough ventilation. Although it feels kind of all right. But that's where you start seeing cognitive effects. And there are lots of brilliant graphs like this which show, and this is, I know it's very hard to read, but basically you've got 8 o'clock in the morning to when school ends at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The green part is in the morning when the kids are coming in, when they go out to break, and then when they go out to play at lunchtime. This is the steadily rising CO2 levels, and they're over 2,500 at this point, and everyone starts falling asleep. It's very hard to learn anything if you're asleep. That's a fact. So, and then everyone goes out to play, the CO2 levels drop, and they taper off during the day. So we have loads of data from monitoring CO2 levels in buildings like schools. What happens? And what happens when you correct that? So passive house is not just about ticking energy boxes. It's about building really quality buildings that the people using the buildings feel better. And that, I think, is a critical part that we have to remember. It's about comfort. This is just to show you that there are affordable housing being built in the UK. They have a lot of housing agencies that are themselves setting the standards that they want to build to passive house. It's something I'm passionate about because I think I can't understand why we're not building affordable social housing to the passive house standard. The people who can afford least to heat their buildings are people on low incomes, or people who are elderly, frail, elderly people who are not very mobile, need slightly higher temperatures. Very hard to achieve that in a building that's not built well. So here we have in the UK, this housing agency has done this is their second certified passive house project. They're building them at affordable for them costs, and the feedback from the people who've occupied these buildings, it's exceptional. This is the kind of construction you're talking about in passive house. You're talking about lots of insulation, and the system that you use, the ICF, has similar about 300 mil of EPS insulation, which gives you fantastic U values.